Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah amma ba'd fa'auzu billahi minash shaitani rajim Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli Fazkuruni azkurkum washkuruli wa la takfurun Sadaqallahul Azim. We always begin any gathering with the praise of the one who created Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the most gracious, the ultimate ruler of all the worlds. He is the remover of difficulties, the giver of honor, the giver of disgrace, the all-wise one, the gentle one, and the ultimate judge. We send peace and salutations upon the greatest creation to ever been created, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we send peace and blessings upon the Ahlul Bayt, the Sahaba, the Tabi'in, the Tabi'in, Tabi'in, the awliya, and the righteous. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with them all. Now, obviously, we have just entered the month of Rajab, and the regular brothers will have know something about this month and the significance of this month in that regard. And it is one of the first sacred months in Islam, in the Islamic calendar. So it does have a lot of significance, and really it is said it is the beginning of the spiritual season of Islam, and I'll expand on that in due course. And obviously we all know that it is said, that the Prophet said, that Rabbagh is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wa Zawjal's month. The following month, Shaban, is the month of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Ramadan is the month of the Ummah. And really, as soon as Rajab kicks in, or before even Rajab kicks in, we should know what this month is about. Because what happens again is the month starts, we then start to find out what this month actually means. We then think, okay, I've been given this amals, or maybe I should be doing this. And we start wondering and thinking, and before we know it, several days have passed. And by the time we get into gear, really, we're doing half a job, and then before we know it, the month is over. And that often has parallels with even Ramadan. When we don't prepare for Ramadan, the first few days are just about what food we're going to have, and etc., etc. By the time we get into the swing, 10 have gone, 20, and before we know, we're in the last 10, and before you know, it's gone again. And we always have an element of regret that we didn't do as much as we could do in Ramadan, and maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us enough life to meet the next Ramadan. But what happens is we go through the same cycle again in the next Ramadan. Again, we don't prepare beforehand, and we go through the same motions. And we're an odd creation, human beings, in that we often don't learn very quickly in that regard. And even Rajab is the same thing. We've heard it's the month of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that regard. But really, it is the month where we begin and continue and refresh ourselves to fulfill the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we really make amends in any rights which we have infringed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that regard. And likewise, obviously, no doubt, Shaban is where we correct the relationship with Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So those people like myself who may be negligent of the sunnah, we use this as a month to really, refresh and renew. And Rajab really is so important, even if you go back in to the times of Jahiliyyah, that when fighting used to happen, even they used to stop in the month of Rajab. So if you think, we'll call them the modern day kuffar, they even stopped fighting in this month because they realized the significance of this month. And so really, if people like that actually stopped fighting in the month of Rajab, we're not fighting physically in them regards, but are we not often fighting with others, family, friends, husbands, wives, siblings? And do we ever stop that? Is there ever a truce as such? Really, this is where we should be taking the actual lesson from this month. That if the non-believers can physically stop fighting this month, then why can't we stop fighting with relatives, partners, siblings, whom have rights upon us, whom already had rights upon us? We are already sinning, and yet we can't even use this month as a month of truce and a time to reconnect that relationship. And really, I'm not here to give an history lesson in terms of Rajab. People know it has some good, great Islamic events in that. In the month of Rajab, it was the blessed parents of Rasulullah ﷺ who got married, and it was also in this month that the Rasulullah ﷺ were present in the noble body of the blessed mother of the Prophet ﷺ, Sayyidina Amina radhiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And this also, you will hear, is the month of Laylatul Misraj, where the Prophet ﷺ ascended to the heavens. But really, focusing on, when I say to you it's the month of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you should reconnect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What does that actually mean? Because we hear these kind of words said year on year, time and time and again, but what does it actually mean in practice? Now, if we look at the non-believers, we've just entered the new year, and they often use the new year as right, I'm going to lose weight this year, I'm going to join the gym, I'm going to stop smoking, I'm going to stop do this. We have all these new year resolutions, and so people use in this dunya really that the new year is like a reset button, it's a refresh button in that regard. And of course we have an Islamic New Year which starts in Muharram, but we don't have that same mindset. But if we are going to apply that New Year mindset where we think, stop, what am I doing? Why am I putting weight on? Why am I not losing weight? Why am I smoking so much? Whichever bad habit we're going to get rid of, then really people are using the new year as a reset. So really we as Muslims should be using this month as that reset. This should be really our New Year resolution type of month. Because really one of the most important month of Ramadan is, as he said, less than 2 months away. And really this is a preparation for that. So really this is the month we should be using to press that reset button. What is it I've done? What is it I'm doing now? What have I done in the last few months? As a purpose of reflection, we should be using this month to reflect upon ourselves. What have I done in the last 12 months in terms of my deen? I may have progressed in my education. I may have a degree now. I've gone on to year 10, year 11, first year college, A-levels, whatever that may be. I may have even progressed in my work. I may have got a promotion. I may have got even a better job. Even personally, I only had £5,000 saved last year. This year I've got £10,000. So we mark all these other points in terms of progression. Last year I was driving a Toyota. This time I'm driving an Audi. I see that as progression. People see all these things as progression. Yet when it comes to deen, where do we do that process? When do we evaluate ourselves? Do we actually think, what was I doing last year? Have I improved in any shape or form? And what am I going to do this year to improve that? Or am I just going to muddle through life? I'm young, I'm this, that, the other. I've got plenty of years left in me. I've got another 10, 20, 30, 40 years to do that. Don't worry about that. Yet everything else, we're not waiting around. I don't see anyone waiting around saying, I don't need to study now. I don't need to work. I've got, 30, 40, 50 years of my life still to work. I'll just chill out for the next 5, 10 years. No, we get on with them things. We know the importance of them things. Yet, the most important thing is, as you said, our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because if that relationship is not proper, then really where is everything else? And so really, coming back to it, we have to have that evaluation process somehow. We have to actually think, did I actually pray my salahs last year? How many did I do? Was it once a day? Was it twice a day? Was it 3 times a day? Was it 4 times a day? What was it? Those who prayed 5 times, alhamdulillah. How many did you do in Jamaat then? 1? None? 2, 3, 4, 5? Because every step you're in or every position you're in, there's always something where you can better yourself. There's never a position in this dunya where you can't better yourself. You have 1 billion, you can always get another billion, 2 billion. So whatever position you have, you can always better yourself. Maybe, prime ministers or presidents in this dunya, they think they can't better themselves and they've reached, the top of society, as they may say in that regard. So realistically, this is our new year. and really evaluate yourself. What did I do? It's only when you do look back, what did I do, will then think, well, what should I be doing, and how will I almost try to achieve that? And there's various aspects we can do that in that regard. One is obviously, as I've mentioned, salah. How much salah was I praying? I might have not prayed one single salah last year. Does that mean that's it? Stop? I give up? I may have just been a Friday Muslim, go to the Jummah, and that's it. So really, salah is the starting point for all of us. How many did we pray last year? Now, I'm not expecting you to, if you weren't praying anything, to jump straight to 5 times a day, because, the English saying is Rome wasn't built overnight. And I often hear people say that, and that's right, it wasn't built overnight, but it was eventually built, wasn't it? What we seem to think is we've got maybe 10, 20, 30, 40 years to build that, 5 times. We think the 5 times a day is the optimum achievement for us. If I can get to 5 times a day, I have achieved. But really, that's not the way we should be thinking. The 5 times a day is like your basic. It's like knowing your ABC, really. If you don't do your 5 times salah a day, you really, you're failing your qaida, as they say, innit? It's a starting point for us. And as I said, brothers who do pray 5 times a day, alhamdulillah, they'll tell you the next step then is to go to Jamaat, and that's difficult as well. Can I go outside in the cold weather or when it's raining, or can I even bother to jump in the car maybe 5 times a day to drive that, I don't know, quarter of a mile, half a mile, whatever it is in that regard. Because again, really, that's really the next test for them, to do that prayer in Jamaat in that regard. And so there are other rights Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has. Can anyone name me one? So these are rights which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has over us. Nabil Shah, you're looking very, you're thinking about it. Don't worry, I'm not asking, I just said you're thinking about it. You see, it's amazing that at this time brothers start looking the other way, some brothers put their head down. No one's making eye contact with me. Another one is zakat. Now, it may not apply to many brothers here, as he said, but really, again, zakat is, as he said, one of the 5 pillars, as he said, we should be paying zakat. And even those who are youngsters who are not paying, maybe remind your parents in the house, or the siblings who are married, are you paying their zakat? Is it being paid correctly? When is it supposed to be paid? It was only, I think, I learned last year through our blessed teacher, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him a long life, that when you calculate zakat, you must pay it the same day. What we do is we calculate it and think, we'll sit on it, let's see which charity comes or wherever will do it. And they said, you're denying the rights of somebody who's going to eligible. So you're supposed to calculate it on that day and give it away that day. We calculate it, we sit on it for months. So really, again, even on that basis, I mean, like I said, maybe I'm correct about me about that before the staff said it, but as he said, it was something new to me, that you calculate it and basically you pick one day of the year. I know a lot of people do it in Ramadan because it's a reminder. And you say, let's say, I will do it on the 10th of Ramadan every single year. I will calculate my zakat in the morning, and before Maghrib, it's been given, it's gone to the charity or whatever it is. And of course, you can start giving zakat throughout the year and kind of, use that in that amount. But this idea that we calculate it and then sit on it for months on end, it's not really right. Another one is fasting. If people have missed fast from last year and they've not managed to still make them up, now is the ideal time. Because if you want to really get the full fast this year, really the preparation should start now. That, am I going to keep all the fasts? Or do I need 4 meals a day? So you start reducing all that kind of. But really, if you start making up the missed fast from last year, inshallah, then it will stand you in some kind of good stead in that regard. And there are other rights, as you said, again, people have got the money to go to Hajj, we should go to it. Don't wait till I'm 40, 50, 60 and think, I've got another 30, 40 years. Allah's given you the means, go and do it. You've done your fard. This concept of, let me get the car first, let me get the house first, even let me get married first, let me do all these things, and then Hajj will be the last on the bucket list, isn't it, almost, for us. And so really, again, I mean, those who are on the prophetic path in that regard, if we're going to reset our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, really that really does involve a course review as a bare minimum, because really, we have to have that full reset, and that's what the mentors are there for, to go through with you. And as you said, if you've not had a review for a whole year, don't be embarrassed by it, don't be shy about it. Your mentor is not going to get a stick out and beat you. Them days are gone. So you should really, again, use that as this is the whole purpose of this reset. That am I really going to gain the fruits of this Ramadan and reconnect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because without Allah, we are nothing. We can't create ourselves. We are not in charge of our own health. We may even think we're in charge of our rizq, but we're not. We're not in charge of anything. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the countless blessings Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestows upon us. As you said, if you started counting them, you just couldn't do justice to that in that regard. So in that regard, it's such an important relationship. I don't know, people struggle sometimes saying, well, yes, I know I'm supposed to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, alhamdulillah, we all believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But really, how strong is that belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Do I actually rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for my needs? Do I actually think my rizq is coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Do I think really I'm the author of my own fortune? I'm the one who's worked hard. I'm the one who's earned it. I've got a right over that rizq somehow. So really this then comes back to this. We have this connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we're trying to reset it. It really comes back down to that point. Do we actually have tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Do we only remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when we're in the masjid in Salah, and as soon as we leave here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a distant memory? So that all is encompassed in this relationship reset. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not just there for us 5 times a day. And you can be told, as you said, the 3 keys, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with me, He can see me, He can hear me. I mean, we all know that. We know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is everywhere. But again, we're ignorant of that fact. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there, yet we are ignorant. We it's almost like we have a dismissive attitude in that we know He's there, but is He really there? Because if we, and I include myself, genuinely, if you believe that 110%, all our actions would change, wouldn't they? If we believed 110% Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is seeing me, hearing me, listening to me, then realistically most of our actions would change. And of course, I'm not saying we're not perfect. We are going to be weak. We are going to commit sin. But the more you connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more that awareness will become a reality in your life, rather than some kind of theory for us. Because we get told every month, just remember the 3 keys, but as you said, we almost, I think, as soon as somebody mentions that, we maybe don't even listen to it, because we think we've heard it so many times, we know this, yet we're not practicing it. Simple thing like that, basics, 3 keys, we can't actually practice it in that regard. Even as you said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is listening to me, but as you know, when we come in the house of Allah, the mind wanders off. What time is the speaking going to finish tonight? Where am I eating? Nabila smiles in it when you mention food, of course. It's always on his mind. Alhamdulillah. So, in that regard, realistically, again, this is how the shaitan diverts us. If he diverts our mind, then realistically everything else is gone, isn't it? Because if your mind's not on something, then how good is that action? If your mind's elsewhere, then really you're going to get minimal benefit from anything you do, be that salah, any kind of good act. Even if you go to work and your mind's not on it, your boss will pick up on it. They will notice these things, and because they know you're not working properly, they might ask you, are you okay today? So really, even on that basis, if they can notice it and pull you up about it, then realistically we have to think, am I really in the presence of Allah? Even in the masjid, forget the outside. Let's start with the masjid or the salah. Am I really in the presence of Allah? Because if we're not even in the presence in them acts, what chance have we got when we're walking on Manchester Road towards UKFC thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? We can't. So until we really start bringing them three keys and that focus into the masjid, utmost concentration, then we won't have a chance outside. So again, coming back to this point of resetting that relationship, it's not just the physical acts I'm talking about. Yes, we can come to the masjid, we can do wudu, we can, road runner through salah, we can pay the zakat, we can even refrain from food and then make up for it at iftar time. Those are all physical acts. But again, the mind requires a reset. It's almost within, this, the TikTok, it's flick, 5 seconds gone, next video. And really, the studies tell you that is what's breaking or worsening your concentration habits. And then we wonder why we can't, if I said to everyone, close your eyes now and concentrate for 5 minutes just about Allah subhanahu, make sure you don't do anything else. We'll all struggle. I struggle. Because, we're bombarding everything else in our mind, as he said. So really, just in conclusion then, just really think about this month. How is it am I actually going to reconnect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The person who's not praying should start praying. Start off with once a day. And slowly build yourself up. Because as he said, it's very hard to go from zero to hero. Isn't it, Nabil? So you really have to, like I said, pace yourself, build yourself up. But think you've got less than 60 days now to really get ready for Ramadan. Is this a Ramadan that's going to bring a change about me? Or is it like the other Ramadans, I'm sure Uncle Ibal I can tell you, you start, when you get older, then you realize what you've been doing all these Ramadans, going through that cycle of, I'm going to make it pious. Even though, we're going to do this change and we're the same when we come back to it again. Yes, I will do the amals every night. I will do this. Maybe I will even sit at the calf. But then something crops up. We've not booked the time off work. Work won't give us holidays, But hold on. When we're booking our summer holidays, it's booked 6 months in advance. No worries about that. Oh, brother, I can't sit at the calf. I didn't get time off work. Well, why didn't you put a request in 6 months ago? Even now you'll have time to do it in that regard. And can we actually take 10 days out of our 365 days purely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Ask yourself that question tonight. Can I commit 10 days to sit in a masjid trying to seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Or is it I've got work, college, uni, this problem, that problem, wife, husband, siblings, because that's what will happen again. So really again, just even think about that point again. Can I actually commit 10 days to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Ask yourself that question. Do I actually want to is the first question. Because there are brothers who may, like I said, may be able to, but do not want to. It's not easy sitting 10 days in the mosque. If it was easy, then everyone would do it. So just really, again, have that evaluation process. Those who have mentors really should book that review. And any brothers who've not started the course, they can always get an introduction to the course. And, really make the positive. Because all these months, all these Islamic events, they're not for historical knowledge. Learning Quran, learning Hadith, it's not for historical knowledge, it's for practical application. Otherwise, you're no different to a book which contains all the Hadiths. A book contains all the Hadiths. You can recite them, learn them by heart. But unless there's practical application, there's really, as he said, no effect. If I've said anything wrong or not in accordance with Islam, I seek forgiveness for my errors, and all goodness comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Subhanakallah wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik.